So I want to do a little review of the Kala bass that I got. This is the, I believe it's the top of the line of what they make. Uh, the U bass. It's a tiny, tiny little bass. It's got a very, very short scale. Uh, it actually sounds pretty good. Now I'm cheating here, but I'm gonna play a little. That was terrible bass playing. However, there's some interesting things about this bass. Number one is that all of the pictures of it showed that this particular bass seemed to have this on this part of the guitar, and I looked at that and I thought, that's not really going to be that great, but I ordered it anyway. But then it turns out to actually be on this part of the guitar, which is nice. The other thing is that the bass is a little bit noisy. You can probably hear a little bit of hiss from it. Here I can, the bass is all the way turned down, and now it's turned all the way up. It's got a built-in tuner. This is it upside down. I'll turn it on. You'll notice that when it's turned on, the bass doesn't make any sound, which I guess a lot of people like. I actually prefer to be able to kick on my tuner while I'm playing, just so that I can make any alterations that need to happen. Uh, the other thing about this bass, I've heard a lot of things on the internet about their intonation having a problem, but the intonation is pretty good to me. The strings are weird. They're weird. And they don't behave the way you expect. So sometimes you have to turn the key a whole lot just to get a little bitty bit of difference on the strings, and apparently that it just takes a while. But the other strange thing about the strings is that they do not bend the way I would expect. Like I would have expected a lot more pitch change. Doesn't always happen that way. On the other hand, it sounds like a big bass guitar. It sounds like a big bass guitar that I have difficulty fingering because it's so small. And the other sort of fun thing is that when you go up the neck, boy, it gets very woody sounding. Another thing that I suspect is that it takes a much lighter touch than I'm used to, and so I'm overplaying it a little bit. And I keep, here, let me set it in my lap so I can play it a little bit better. The other thing about it is, another thing that I was not expecting with this bass is there's a lot of handling noise. There's a lot of handling noise with this bass. Oh, and I did want to mention that I'm cheating, so I'm playing through a Kemper model of a JTM 45 clone that I have. It's sorry, it's not a model, it's a profile on my Kemper, and I'm going through a Warm Audio SSL compressor. Let me turn that off. Now the bass is going to be much quieter. Let me turn up the gain a little bit to make up for how much quieter it is. It's still pretty darn quiet. when it starts to overload this amp, it's not great sounding. Yeah, there's where it's not great sounding. And I'll turn it up at the preamp. Oh, don't want to overload the preamp either. So it's a little bit delicate, even more than most bass guitars. And I find bass guitars actually to be fairly finicky because I am a sloppy guitar player, not really a bass player. So there does seem to be a very, very narrow range of dynamics that it really wants to be in to get that big, big bass sound. I guess you could slap with it, I don't know. The other thing that's a little bit odd to me is that, man, there's nowhere to put your thumb, depending on how your technique works. It just sounds like crap now. Let me go back to the original. So this is, again, through a big limiter. Most people don't use the SSLs as recording limiters, but I kind of like them. This is, it's an output limiter of a G series console, but I kind of like it. Always have. So it's a pretty neat little instrument. It's very, very small. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but the electronics on it, they seem, pretty good. It's got a lot of EQ options. You can turn up the bass and turn down the mids and the treble. Actually, that sounds pretty good. But let's turn down the bass and turn up the mids and the treble. That sounds terrible. Let's just turn up the trebles. Well, so the treble might be where most of my problems are. So that was all middle, no bass, no treble, which is kind of an interesting sound. Anyway, this I believe is the one that has the best electronics. They're not terribly well named, so you sort of have to hunt around. It would be nice if they would just call this like the Alpha series, and then you could just be happy. But it's pretty neat for a little electronic. It's got active pickups, and of course I am cheating by going through a fairly high-end recording channel. It's going through a Lindell mic preamp out of the Kemper amplifier, which is unnecessary, but then hitting a warm audio bus compressor. But I like it, and you can definitely get like that huge bottom end. Which amuses me greatly, especially since it is the smallest scale instrument I own, because I don't have any mandolins. But anyway, that's what I got. Have a good one.